Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hi, welcome to episode 100 of the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I am your host, Tracy Stuckrath. I cannot believe that I'm at episode 100 and that I started this a year ago, March in 2020, and that I have interviewed 90 plus experts in all facets of food and beverage, doctors and lawyers and farmers and chefs and advocates and eaters and meeting planners. And I cannot even share with you how impressed by them I am, how much I've learned from them, how much they're giving to our communities through the food and beverage that they are providing or they're advocating for. I mean, it's so inspiring. And I wanted to take a clip from every single one of my episodes and share it here on this 100th episode, but that would make the episode way too long. So what I've done is I've taken clips from a little bit more than a handful of episodes and just highlighted some of the things that I thought came out of this entire year and things that we can all take and use when we're creating food and beverage experiences, whether it's as a meeting planner, a chef, a mom, an HR manager, in the workplace. So listen to these clips, go back and listen to the full episodes if you've got time, and then also listen to the other 99 episodes that I have. But here you go. I hope you enjoy them. While I could give you clips from every single one of my episodes, that podcast episode would be too long. And there's so many good nuggets in all 99 episodes. But I'm going to give you clips from a handful or more of some of episodes that I think have some really good snippets in it. The first episode I want to give you a clip of is episode number 16, Catalyzing on a More Sustainable Growing System with Tina Pina. And she talks about how we can reduce the amount of waste that we have in our everyday lives. And her entire episode is about taking waste and creating fertilizer from that waste, and how she is taking her knowledge and expertise and helping urban farmers do better with fertilizer. So check out this clip here.
We just want to do what's right for everyone, right? Like, I'm not in this business to make a whole bunch of money. I'm just in this business to get people to think and do differently for the benefit of the environment, for the benefit of people, and nourishing ourselves. Because I come from the adage that, like, we have the ability to heal ourselves. We're just not aware of the tools. And so nutrition is one, there's other modalities. And so I believe and try to encourage the same thought with plants as well. There's no need for us to add a whole bunch of inputs and all these things that, plants, once they're biologically balanced, they'll have the right mechanisms to thwart off pests and insects. So I say this all on a tangent, but given that type of approach and that type of way that I practice, it hasn't been hard to find really good people to work with. And I think the big takeaway is if people know that you're authentic and you come from good intentions and you're consistent about it, you're not just trying to do things to attract a certain outcome, you can find good people. You just have to stay steadfast to what your values are and don't let them become compromised.
The second clip that I want to give you is from episode 37, COVID as a Positive Disruption to the Catering Service. My interview is with James Filtz, Director of Meetings and Special Events at the Ritz-Carlton, New Orleans, and he actually is the incoming president for the National Association of Catering and Events. In this clip, he talks about how we can take the disruption of COVID and make our events better. So listen in here. how can we take this disruption and be really inventive and creative with that? I mean, we're in the events industry. That's what we do for a living. And actually I should tell everybody that you're the incoming president-elect for the National Association for Catering and Events, correct?
That's right. So I'm vice president now, and I move into that president-elect role January 1st.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you got 3 more years on the board after this one.
That's right. So to answer your question about the disruption, one of the things that has been very profoundly impactful for our guests and our ladies and gentlemen is waste reduction. So when we used to set these buffets before, people would serve themselves. You know, they would go to a buffet line, and the first thing on the buffet would look delicious. So they would take a whole scoop of that. And the second thing would look delicious, and they take a whole scoop of that. And by the time they get it to the end of the buffet, they would have a gigantic mounding things of food, or they would go back a second time because there were things they couldn't eat. Now that people aren't allowed to serve themselves, our ladies and gentlemen are now serving the guests, and they're allowed to talk to them about what's on the buffet. You know, they're able to better calibrate portion size for people, knowing how much of something people are likely to want to have. And people have to be a little bit more mindful. Instead of just grabbing and mindlessly taking food, our staff are now engaging with them, telling them about the food, telling them how spicy or not spicy it is, telling them about whether an ingredient is indigenous to Louisiana, or what something is, or, you know, as I know you talk a lot about on your show, what allergy or food safety attributes a food item might have, and be able to talk to the guest about that. So it's been amazing that we've been able to engage more with our guests. We've seen our food waste go down. The amount of food that we need to prepare per guest has certainly dropped as a result. And people are enjoying the food that we're serving more than ever, I think.
The third clip is from episode number 57, and I'm going in order here just so you can stay in order. But episode 57, which my interview with Tiffany Berrier, history, lessons, and cocktails. Tiffany is the drinking coach, and in this episode, she talks about how she makes cocktails and tells Black history with each of those cocktails. And you'll love this interview with her in talking about how she got into what she's doing and why it's so important to tell the history of Black people in hospitality and food and beverage.
I paid attention to the way storytelling was happening when you created a cocktail. My mentors and some of the people that I watched on the side always told a fantastic story at the bar or through their cocktail. And I wanted to do that, but I felt a little shy on sharing it because African and Black history the stories are a little, jaded. They're a little dark. Some of them just don't have much of a silver lining. So I never really shared my narrative, but I did share it in the ingredients. So I had those like flavors of molasses and sorghum and fresh fruits from home. And I would just let it leak out every once in a while what I knew about the past and service industry. But again, you think about Black and African-American history when it comes to service, and it's not the best story. So I just had an aha moment. I was taking care of my father. He's no longer with us. But while I was in that time with him caretaking, my mindset just shifted on my true passion of creating cocktails and what I was representing. And also as a woman, here I am representing a Black woman in this industry from the South making cocktails. It just was like, wait a minute, what are you really doing? And I just looked at the larger picture, what I want to stand for, what I'd like to project. And then I just popped right into it. The pandemic happened. So I'm sure everybody has a pandemic pivot story. But not only did the pandemic happen to keep me home and back into my books, I love to read. I love history. But the country was going through a big change in multiple categories, especially with the movement of Black culture. And I just felt a need to share stories that weren't always the best, but have a better outcome. And that tends to be the storyline of Black and African-American families in America. And so I started to go, you know what? Even though we're here, I'm going to share this story and I'm going to share this story and I'm going to share this story because currently we're in a yucky state, but we're going to grow out of it. And I looked at the ancestors and I looked at these stories and I'm like, but they created so many great things. So I can share these stories and put some highlight to it. And one story led to another, which led to another. And there are millions of more that I have to share. And we're going to stay on this path right now to share those stories that aren't told.
The fourth clip that I want to give you, and I have to tell you, I've been listening to all my own episodes over again, and I'm learning so much again, listening to them after just interviewing them. So it's just so encouraging and so inspiring to listen to all these food and beverage experts that I've talked to over the past year and a half. And it's just, I hope you learn as much as I do from all of these people. So the fourth clip is episode number 71, taking a holistic view of event food and beverage. And I am chatting with Chef Francois Eggenbach from South Africa. He is the executive chef at the CSIR International Convention Center in Pretoria, South Africa. And in this episode, he talks about how his experience with Janet Spearstead in creating a better event by thinking about the nutrition and how food and beverage impacts our brains and our retention rates and what he learned from that experience. So tune into this episode, listen to this clip, but tune into episode 71 to hear more from him. Being aggressive, transforming the food and beverage offerings. What does that mean? And what are you seeing? What do you want to see done differently?
That is such a massive question. First of all, when I made the statement, I kind of went, "What do you actually realize what you have just stated?" I mean, that is such a bold statement. That is taking such a large portion of the industry by the horns and trying to redirect it. And I think the most important thing is for me realizing that it is time. It's long time. It's actually overdue that we start giving food its due place in the events and meeting industry, but also in general, in life, in everyday living, in everyday interactions, affording it the place it deserves, and that sustenance is not just scoffing down something in the hope that you will feel fulfilled. It serves a massive purpose. There's so many aspects to it that we can benefit from just by redirecting small portions at a time of what we eat, how we eat, when we eat it. And that is my goal. That is something that I am really driving to do, realizing the challenge ahead, making that statement, sort of went, now you've gone and done it. Now you're going to deliver.
I'm right here to support you, though. So whatever you need from us. The next clip is from episode 91, The Black Tie Experience with Bob Pakanowski. And in this episode, we talk about black tie service levels and what that means with your catering teams. Check out this clip on him talking about the systems that are needed to ensure that black tie experience happens and how you can train your employees to create that and how systems can help them provide that fantastic service.
But I would be more upset if I actually made that effort as a guest to tell the planner, whoever it is, you know what, here are my allergies. And then I get this meal. It's like, wait a minute. So that means you really either A, didn't listen to me, or B, really don't care. Interesting.
So what best practices have you seen or that you implemented that help that communication channel, getting from the person who requested it, and even actually a best practice of asking about it, right? And then getting it and passing it all the way through, because it's like the telephone and the can and the string, right? The conversation gets messed up.
Well, again, for me, it came down to systems.
Okay.
So we had a system in place that if we knew that we had 6, 7 people who had these various allergies, it's all documented. It's all going to be passed through the chain from our management meeting where we went over every detail of all the events. Then we put that on the BEO that we send out to our staff that says, here's the menu. Also, we have 6, 7, whoever it is. These are the various allergies. Please be aware of them. And then it's covered at the pre-shift meeting. Now, hopefully, whoever is, let's say it's a sit-down dinner.
Right.
Hopefully, if the meeting planner also, like we're going to be working with them, I mean, he or she's going to be talking with us anyway about this, but hopefully then they will do something to identify who those people are at those tables, whether it's a card, color coded, whatever it is, so that we're not auctioning off. Okay. So, so it's just really about making sure. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Cards like this, and having a variety. I have a whole bunch of them, but a variety of those so that people can hand this to your server. Right.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, so it's, to me, it's about having the right systems in place to have those details in the back of the house, which back of the house means in this sense, what we do as a catering and event company, so that it's a seamless experience for the guest. And that's where I think we mess up is somewhere along the line, the chain gets broken. And now, oh gosh, I didn't know that you wanted that. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Actually, the last 2 clips that I want to share with you are from pretty recent episodes. They're really top of mind. But one is episode 94, Convening Kosher. And I interviewed 2 women who are Jewish and eat kosher on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, because it was about that time that those holidays were coming upon us. But how do you eat kosher? And what does a meeting planner need to understand about feeding guests who eat kosher? So check out this interview with both Nancy Sutter-Burns and Deborah Shapiro. And this clip is specifically kind of what does kosher mean and the different levels of kosher experience.
Well, the way I used to teach it to the stores is there's different levels of kosher, but there's really only one set of kosher rules. There's different levels on the way people keep kosher, personally, on how much they want to take on of the rules. But kosher is not about religion. Kosher is 100% science. So it's all about cross-contamination, quality assurance, and a lot of people who don't even keep kosher look for kosher symbols like vegetarians and stuff that help mark out what products are meat and what are free of meat, etc. And it's almost like a second set of eyes that are going in and expecting to make sure there's cleans. I one time had to reject a vendor for Winn-Dixie stores because they said they were losing their kosher certification. And when we asked why, they said, because we had a ventilation equipment that dripped one product into another product and we could possibly cross-contaminate this product with non-kosher product. I'm like, well, you have much bigger issues than losing your kosher certification because you're going to lose our business if you're dripping one product into another product, because I don't need a vegetarian getting meat sauce in their salsa. It was a salsa company that also did spaghetti sauce, and that was the problem. I'm like, so in a lot of ends, kosher, the rules of kosher make things very clean and nice and separated. But in terms of the way that people keep kosher, there's some people who just keep kosher style, who just, and then there's some people who are like, well, I want to keep my milk and meat separate. I want everything clean and separate, but I don't need supervision. And so I created something for the stores that we call the kosher equation, which is ingredients plus equipment plus supervision equals kosher. If you have to have kosher ingredients, kosher equipment, which is the koshering that you're talking about, which is basically just cleaning everything, boiling it or blowtorching it and getting off all food residues. And then a supervisor there to ensure that everything stays clean and inspects all the ingredients. If you have all 3 of those elements there, then something can be classified as kosher. But there are people, when it's a private event, who have their own sort of stringencies, just sort of like, it's the same thing. It's like, how many people that that don't go to mass, but they give up something for Lent. It's the same thing. Since religion is personal, there's some that's like, well, as long as the ingredients are kosher, I don't care about the equipment, the supervision. Some people are like, well, as long as you've cleaned everything and the ingredients are kosher, I don't need you to pay for a supervisor, and I don't want to expense the cost of you not being able to produce anything else because you have the supervisor there and everything has to be separate. For private events, it ends up being a matter of personal opinion. But if you are catering at a public conference and if you're catering for a corporate event, then Nancy is right. There is only one type of kosher, and then you use that highest classification of kosher that has ingredients, supervision, and equipment all together so that all levels of guests feel comfortable and can participate in it. So it's very important to know the different levels of kosher supervision in your city so that if you're doing a corporate event, you should go to the one that everybody will accept. Private events, yes, you can have your flexibility with 5 private events.
And the final episode that I want to give you a clip on is from episode number 98, which was celebrating National Goat Cheese Month. And it cracks me up that my guest, who is a goat farmer, goat cheese maker, had no idea that it was National Goat Cheese Month. But Mary Rigdon and I talk about how to make goat cheese, how she makes goat cheese, and what inspired her. And this clip that you have got is about how people with different dietary restrictions eat goat cheese versus eating dairy cheese, and how she makes that, and why it's important for them to understand how she's making her goat cheese. The difference between goat cheese and cow cheese or milk and variety of that. And then because I talk about allergies, can we talk about, is there a difference in that? And can people with food allergies eat goat cheese that they can't eat cow cheese?
Everyone's systems are so different and unique. But goat cheese, the fat molecule is like ABCD, where a cow milk molecule has so many more fatty acids. It's like the whole alphabet. And folks that have tender stomachs, it's easier for their stomachs to break those bonds of the goat milk rather than the cow milk. Now, cow milk has carotene, where goat milk does not. It has vitamin A, but it doesn't have the carotene. So seasonally, cow milk will change color just a little bit. And because folks in the grocery store were like, it didn't look the same as it did last year or last week, that cow industry put annetto as an orange dye in there so that they would not have the seasonality of the color changes. And that's why you have the annetto. But the goat's milk is always white.
Okay.
And so with the goat's milk, I'm able to satisfy the needs of some folks, because in the cow dairy industry, when I was there, they were using an iodine teat dip to wash before you milk. You wash the animal and make sure they're clean. I started using chlorine because bleach is really inexpensive, but it does a great job. Now I've moved to a chlorine-based cleaner.
Okay.
But it's still that chlorine-based, because some of the folks that were friends of mine originally said, oh, we're allergic to the iodine. That's why we can't have cheese.
Wow.
So I don't use an iodine teat dip. In my cheeses, when I make them, I don't start with a mold inhibitor. It's just a fresh cheese. And I started making the cheese for my family, so it was always going to be fresh. And I had so many people that, as I talked about doing this, came down the driveway and said, somebody else's cheese made my system itch. Well, because I hadn't started with a mold inhibitor and I knew I just wanted to sell a fresh cheese.
Right.
There's no mold inhibitor in the cheese. It's just the good bacteria, an organic vegetable rennet, and then some coarse kosher salt if the recipe calls for that. The creamy goat cheese that I make is no salt in it at all. And I had one chef that said, there's not enough salt in your cheese. And I said, but chef, if I put too much in, you can't take it back out. So you should make a decision. And so for the folks who have heart trouble that way and need that low salt diet, they can utilize this cheese. And the one woman whose husband had a heart attack and was just really jonesing for a pizza, she could make the pizza sauce and the crust and then get my cheese with no salt in it. And he could have that pizza and not totally blow his diet because he had so much trouble. The nice part about having goats is because they're so universal, there's people all around the world who use the goat's milk and the goat's meat. So folks have come down my driveway from Nigeria, from Bosnia, from Afghanistan, that my husband had asked at one point, were we running the UN? Because all of these people know goats.
It's the number one meat eaten around the world.
Right. Because they're more efficient at converting what they eat into milk or meat. And they're pleasant, easy to deal with. Most of the time they have their little tricks. And if you're trying to keep them in one spot and they think they need to go to another, your fences better be in good shape or they'll have tried everything to get to where they would like to be. But they're really personable, and I've enjoyed and appreciated that. But when they come from, Puerto Rico, where there's refrigeration there, but there are places where there's not the refrigeration.
Right.
Or to be able to make a fresh product with the milk that they get every day and have that as a protein source for the children that are there, that's really important.
So again, there are 99 episodes before this one where I interviewed so many fascinating people with different backgrounds in food and beverage. And I've learned so much from participating and listening to them. And I hope that you do too. And just take these clips that I've given you in this episode and use them as inspiration to go back and listen to different episodes throughout the season. And I look forward to you listening to the next 100 episodes as well, where I find 199 other fabulous people to interview. So thank you again for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. Until next time, I'm Tracy Stuckrath. Stay safe and eat well. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.